perfect on the outside, introducing the seemingly perfect couple. The sun poured golden light through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the elegant suburban home. Everything about the house was picture-perfect: manicured lawn, gleaming luxury cars in the driveway, and fresh white roses blooming along the front porch. It was the kind of home people slowed down to admire. Inside, the smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls drifted through the air. Sarah stood at the kitchen island dressed in a soft cashmere sweater and tailored jeans. Her smile was calm, practiced, the kind you'd expect from someone whose life looked effortlessly beautiful. She glanced at the clock as footsteps echoed down the staircase. "Morning, love," Daniel said, placing a warm kiss on her cheek. He looked impeccable, as always. Pressed shirt, styled hair, a hint of expensive cologne. "You made cinnamon rolls again? You're spoiling me." Sarah chuckled, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "You work so hard. You deserve it." They sat at the table, laughter bouncing lightly between them. Their golden retriever padded over and rested its head on Daniel's lap. A perfect morning, a perfect family. Later, Sarah uploaded a photo to Instagram. The breakfast spread, the sunlight glowing behind them, Daniel reaching for her hand. "Grateful. My person. Sunday bliss," the caption read. Within minutes, the likes poured in. Comments like "couple goals" and "you two are perfection" filled the screen. To their neighbors and friends, Sarah and Daniel were the dream. She ran a small but successful home decor business from her sunlit office. He was a rising executive in a well-known firm. Together, they attended charity galas, hosted flawless dinner parties, and took envy-worthy vacations to Tuscany and the Maldives. Sarah's social media was a canvas of joy: romantic dates, morning coffees in bed, and handwritten notes from Daniel reminding her how much he loved her. But behind the lens, Sarah's smile sometimes faltered. When the guests left and the cameras stopped clicking, silence often filled the home. Not a peaceful silence, but a cold one, sharpened by tension, by the unspoken need to keep things looking perfect. Daniel didn't raise his voice or his hand. Instead, he demanded obedience with a smile, withheld affection as punishment, and dismissed her thoughts with charming cruelty. But no one saw that side. At the neighborhood barbecue last weekend, Daniel pulled Sarah close, whispering sweet nothings. Everyone watched them with admiration. Someone even joked, "Are you two actors or just really in love?" Sarah had smiled, a practiced, perfect smile. From the outside, their marriage sparkled like a diamond under glass, but no one knew how sharp the edges were, how much it could cut. Social media illusion, showing how Sarah uses social media to mask her reality. The soft click of the phone camera shutter echoed in the quiet room. Sarah adjusted the throw pillows on the couch, angling them just right, then stepped back to frame the perfect shot. The living room gleamed, fresh flowers in a vase, a steaming mug on a tray, and a neatly folded blanket over the armrest. Warm lighting cast a cozy glow over the scene. She snapped a few more pictures, tilted her head, then chose the best one. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she typed, "Sunday serenity with my favorite book and a cup of peace. So grateful for this beautiful life." Blessed on home vibes. On gratitude. As the post uploaded, she let out a quiet sigh. The truth was, she hadn't opened the book beside her in weeks. The piece she mentioned? It was a curated illusion, just like the filtered photo, just like her life online. A loud bang upstairs made her flinch. Daniel had slammed the bedroom door, again. Their argument from earlier still echoed in her head, something small, as it usually was. She had disagreed with him about a lamp she wanted to buy for the guest room. He had laughed at her choice, then told her she had no taste and should leave decisions like that to him. But he said it with a smile, always with a smile. She tried to push the memory away as notifications began rolling in. "Your house is goals. I need your life, Sarah. You're glowing. Teach me your secrets." Sarah's eyes lingered on those comments. They weren't just praise. They were validation, proof that she was doing something right, that her life looked enviable, even if it didn't feel that way. She scrolled through her profile, photo after photo of glowing moments. Her and Daniel at a vineyard, arms wrapped around each other, wine glasses raised. A cozy photo on Christmas morning, a vacation selfie at the beach, her smile wide, his hand resting gently on her waist. No one saw the way he had berated her on that beach, furious she'd worn the wrong swimsuit, or the tears she wiped away in the hotel bathroom while he ordered room service and laughed at a movie without her. None of that made it into the captions. Sarah stared at her screen, her smile slowly fading. She had crafted a perfect world online, one where love was abundant, her husband was a prince, and every day was wrapped in golden light. But it was all a performance, carefully staged, perfectly filtered. Sometimes she wondered if she posted the pictures for others, or just to convince herself. The camera roll on her phone was full of pictures she never shared, images that told a different story. A wine glass shattered on the floor, tear-streaked selfies, a photo of a locked bedroom door. But no one ever saw those. No one could. Subtle red flags, beginning to reveal the unsettling behaviors from Daniel. The first time Sarah noticed something wasn't quite right, it was subtle. So subtle, she convinced herself it didn't matter. They were at a dinner party, surrounded by friends, wine flowing freely. Sarah had just started telling a story about an old college trip when Daniel lightly placed a hand on her thigh under the table. She glanced at him, smiling. He smiled back, tight, polite, but his eyes were firm. She paused mid-sentence. "We've all heard that one before," Daniel said with a soft chuckle. "Let's not bore everyone, sweetheart." The group laughed. Sarah smiled too, but something inside her curled up and went quiet. After that, the little corrections became common. At first they seemed like harmless preferences. He didn't like her wearing red lipstick, said it was too bold for a married woman. He preferred she texted him before going out, just to keep things clear. When she wanted to spend a weekend visiting her sister, he reminded her of how busy he was and how lonely the house would feel without her. "You know I hate eating alone," he said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Stay, for me." And she did. Her phone rang one afternoon while she was arranging flowers in the dining room. It was Mia, her best friend from college. Sarah hesitated before answering. They hadn't spoken in weeks. Mia had stopped calling so often after her last few invites were politely declined or quietly ignored. "Hey, stranger!" Mia's voice was warm. "Still alive over there?" Sarah laughed, but it sounded thin, even to her. "Just busy, you know how it is. We're all meeting for brunch this weekend. Come, please. No excuses this time." Sarah hesitated. She glanced at the calendar. Daniel had nothing planned that day, but still, he wouldn't like it. He always said her friends were a distraction. He called Mia loud and too opinionated. "I'll check with Daniel," Sarah said softly. Mia paused. "Sarah, you don't need permission to see your friends." Sarah's grip on the phone tightened. "It's just out of courtesy," she replied quickly. "He does the same with me." It wasn't true. Daniel came and went as he pleased. She didn't even know half the people he spent time with. But somehow the rules were different for her. That night, she brought it up carefully. "Mia invited me to brunch Saturday. I thought I might go." Daniel looked up from his laptop. "Why?" She blinked. "Just to catch up. It's been a while." He smiled. "You've been tired lately, and we were going to relax that day, remember? Besides, those girls never liked me." There was no anger in his voice, no raised tone, just a quiet finality. She nodded. "You're right. Maybe next time." As she turned away, Daniel kissed her hand. "I just want to protect you from the wrong energy." Sarah smiled, but a small voice inside whispered, "Then why does this feel so wrong?" Private suffering, exploring Sarah's emotional turmoil and inner struggle. At 3:12 a.m., Sarah lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Beside her, Daniel slept soundly, his breath steady, his arm casually draped across her waist like a lock. The room was still, but Sarah's mind churned, thoughts clashing like waves in a storm. She eased out from under his arm and slipped silently out of bed, careful not to wake him. The floorboards creaked as she tiptoed into the bathroom. She shut the door gently, sat on the cold edge of the tub, and buried her face in her hands. The tears came quickly, without drama, quiet, controlled, just like everything in her life had to be. She didn't know why tonight had broken her more than others. Maybe it was the way Daniel dismissed her earlier when she showed him a new product idea for her business, something she had poured weeks into designing. He barely looked up from his phone. "Not your best work, babe. Try something cleaner, or maybe just stick to the basics. Safe sells." She had nodded, smiled, and told him he was probably right. She always told him he was right. In public, she played the role so well: gracious wife, elegant hostess, endlessly supportive partner. She laughed on cue, posed for photos, made excuses for Daniel's absences or indifference. She had become a master of disguise. But behind the smiles were long nights like this, curled up on bathroom tiles, wondering when her voice had gotten so small. She used to be someone, a dreamer, a creator. She remembered late-night conversations with Mia about building her own brand, traveling the world, falling in love with someone who truly saw her. And now, she could barely recognize herself. She looked up into the mirror. Her eyes were red, mascara smudged beneath them. She hadn't even remembered crying earlier. A tired face stared back. Beautiful, but worn. She pulled a bottle of concealer from the drawer. She dabbed it beneath her eyes out of habit, even though no one would see her until morning. Still, the act of hiding had become instinct. When she returned to bed, Daniel rolled over and mumbled, "Where'd you go?" "Just needed water," she whispered. He pulled her close, half asleep. "Love you," he murmured. She didn't answer. Instead, she let him hold her like he always did, like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't slowly disappearing. And in that quiet, airless space between their bodies, Sarah tucked her grief deeper inside, layering it with silence, just like she had every day for the past 3 years. Pretending was easier than confronting the truth, because the truth was, she was lonely, lonelier than she had ever been, and no one, not even those closest to her, had the faintest idea. Emotional manipulation, highlighting how Daniel controls Sarah through guilt, blame, and charm. The argument started over something small. It always did. Sarah had forgotten to order Daniel's preferred wine for their dinner party that evening. She'd been juggling errands, work emails, and setting the table to his exacting standards, but none of that mattered. As she placed the final wine glass on the table, Daniel stepped into the dining room, scanning everything with a practiced eye. His smile faded when he noticed the bottle on the bar cart. "This isn't the Malbec I asked for," he said, voice calm but clipped. "I know," Sarah said, brushing her hair behind her ear nervously. "The store was out. I didn't think it would matter. This one's really nice." He didn't raise his voice. He never did. That would be too obvious. Instead, he let out a soft chuckle and shook his head. "Of course it matters, Sarah. It's not about the wine. It's about paying attention. You don't listen." "I do listen," she said, quieter now. Daniel stepped closer, his smile returning, but not kindly. "I work 10-hour days, come home to help you throw these dinner parties, and all I ask is one thing, one bottle. But sure, let's just serve whatever you like." Sarah felt the sting in his words, but she said nothing. Arguing would only make it worse. He leaned in, brushing a finger along her jaw. "You used to be so thoughtful. What's happening to you, babe?" Guilt bloomed in her chest. Later, after the guests left and the laughter faded, Daniel wrapped his arms around her in the kitchen as she loaded the dishwasher. His voice was soft again, like silk. "Hey, I'm sorry if I was harsh earlier," he murmured against her neck. "I just want everything to be perfect for us. You know how important our image is." Sarah nodded silently. "You're everything to me," he continued, pulling her closer. I need to know I can count on you. that you're not slipping, that I'm not slipping. The way he said it made her feel like she was failing him, like she had something to prove, like his disappointment was her fault, not his expectations. Moments like this happened often. When she felt distant, he suddenly became affectionate, bringing home flowers, planning romantic evenings, whispering things like, "No one understands me like you do." When she tried to speak up, he'd turn it around. "You're being overly sensitive," or "I was only joking. Don't twist my words." When she cried, he'd hold her and say, "Why are you doing this to us?" He never yelled. He never threatened. But somehow she always ended up apologizing, always trying harder, always doubting herself. And through it all, Daniel remained the charming, attentive husband to the outside world, the perfect man in every room. Only Sarah knew the truth, and even she was starting to forget which version of it was real. The breaking point, where Sarah faces a dramatic moment that forces her to confront the truth. It was supposed to be a celebration. Daniel had landed a major promotion, and Sarah had spent the entire day preparing the house, polishing every surface, cooking his favorite meal, even ironing his dress shirt the way he liked it. She wanted everything to be perfect. Maybe tonight he'd smile the way he used to. Maybe he'd see her again. When Daniel walked through the door, she greeted him with a warm smile and a kiss on the cheek. "Congratulations," she whispered, but his expression barely flickered. "Where's the champagne?" Sarah blinked. I thought we'd open it after dinner." He stepped past her without a word, setting his briefcase down a little too hard. The silence that followed was familiar, but this time it felt different, sharper. At dinner, Sarah tried to keep the mood light. She asked about his day, complimented his suit, told him how proud she was. He barely looked up from his phone. Finally, she reached across the table, placing her hand over his. "Daniel, can we just talk without screens for once?" His eyes snapped to hers, cold, flat. "You don't get to lecture me about being present," he said. "You think playing house makes you important? I'm the reason this life even exists. And you want to tell me how to spend dinner?" Sarah's heart pounded. "I'm just asking you to be here, with me." He stood up suddenly, pushing the chair back with a screech. "You're unbelievable. Daniel." In 2 steps, he was beside her. His hand slammed down on the table, rattling the plates. She flinched. Then he picked up her wineglass and threw it across the room. Glass exploded against the wall. Red liquid dripped down like blood. The room went dead silent. Sarah sat frozen in her chair, breath shallow. Her hands trembled in her lap. Daniel looked at the broken glass, then at her. His chest rose and fell with slow, controlled breaths. "Look what you made me do," he said quietly. She didn't respond. Couldn't. He stormed out of the room, and she was alone with the wreckage. For a long time, she didn't move. The smell of wine mixed with the sharp scent of fear. Her eyes locked on the broken glass glinting under the chandelier light. Something shifted inside her, a cold, heavy weight pressing down on her chest. This wasn't just emotional cruelty anymore. This was dangerous. This was real. She cleaned the glass in silence, her hands steady, her face blank. But in her mind, something had cracked. The version of her life she had been clinging to, polished, perfect, curated, was a lie that had almost consumed her. She stared at her reflection in the hallway mirror on her way upstairs. Her face looked calm, composed, but behind her eyes something had changed. She wasn't sure what came next, but for the first time in years, she knew this. She couldn't stay. The hidden truth, revealing Daniel's darker past through flashbacks and discoveries. The night after the dinner party disaster, Sarah sat in the darkened living room, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the only sound breaking the stillness. Her thoughts raced in chaotic patterns, fragments of memories flashing by, each one starting to reveal a more unsettling picture. She reached for her phone, her fingers trembling as she unlocked it. She couldn't stop thinking about the broken glass, the look in Daniel's eyes, the coldness. And then something caught her attention. An old text message from a woman she didn't recognize. It was sent months ago, before Daniel's promotion. You're still the same, aren't you? I don't know why I ever let you back in my life. Don't forget who you really are. Sarah's heart thudded painfully in her chest as she read the message again. Who was this woman? What had Daniel been hiding? She scanned the rest of the conversation, her stomach sinking lower with every word. There was no name, just messages that seemed filled with anger, regret, and history. History Sarah had never known about. As she stared at the phone screen, the front door creaked open. Daniel's voice echoed from the hallway. Sarah? What are you doing up? She quickly locked the phone, her pulse quickening. She had to know more. The truth was starting to seep through the cracks, and she couldn't ignore it anymore. The next morning, Sarah found herself at a coffee shop, sitting across from Mia. The familiar clink of coffee cups and casual chatter around them felt distant, almost suffocating. Her hands shook as she cupped the warm mug, still unsettled by the discovery. Mia, I need to ask you something, Sarah began, her voice quieter than usual. Did you ever know anything about Daniel? His past, I mean? Mia looked at her, brows furrowing. What do you mean? I thought you two were happy. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her gaze dropping to her hands. It's just, there's something I found. Something that doesn't make sense. Mia's eyes narrowed. Sarah, what's going on? What did you find? Messages. From someone he knows. From his past. I don't even know who they are. Sarah hesitated before speaking again. Mia, do you think Daniel's ever hurt anyone? Mia's face went pale and she leaned forward, her voice dropping. I don't want to say too much, but I've heard things. Things I didn't want to believe. Sarah's heart stopped. What do you mean? Mia hesitated. Before you, Daniel was different. I know a few people from his old life. There was a woman, a girlfriend, I think. She said he was controlling. He hurt her, physically, emotionally. Sarah recoiled as if struck. What? Number, that's not possible. I didn't believe it either. But I heard about the way he treated her, the way he manipulated her into staying. I think he's been doing the same to you. The room felt like it was closing in on Sarah. She could hardly breathe. All the little signs, the quiet manipulations, the blame, it all began to make a sickening kind of sense. The man she thought she knew wasn't the man he had been before. The phone buzzed on the table. Her text from Daniel. Where are you? Don't make me worry. It was the same controlling tone, the same subtle claim over her time and thoughts. I have to go, Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. I need to figure out what's real. Mia reached out, her hand gentle on Sarah's. Please be careful. If what I'm saying is true, you need to get away. You deserve better than this. Seeking help, where Sarah begins confiding in a trusted friend, taking the first steps toward freedom. The sunlight streamed through the windows of the small therapy office, casting soft shadows on the beige walls. Sarah fidgeted in her seat, hands clasped tightly in her lap, her nails digging into her skin. She had been sitting here for nearly 10 minutes, the quiet hum of the air conditioner the only sound filling the space. Dr. Emma Williams sat across from her, her expression gentle but firm, her pen resting on a notepad. She'd been seeing Sarah for several months now, but today felt different. Today, Sarah had finally reached a point where she couldn't keep the truth locked away any longer. After another long moment of silence, Sarah spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know where to start, she said, glancing down at her hands. Dr. Williams nodded understandingly. We can take our time, whenever you're ready. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the words began to spill out. I don't even recognize my life anymore. It's like I'm living in someone else's story. Everything looks perfect from the outside. Everyone thinks we have this amazing marriage, but it's all a lie. Her voice shook as she continued. Daniel isn't who he seems. He's controlling. He manipulates me. And I don't know what to do. Dr. Williams leaned forward slightly, her eyes steady on Sarah's. It's okay. You're doing great. Can you tell me what's been happening? Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the last few months crashing down on her. At first, it was small things, little comments, at dinner, at parties. Things like telling me how to dress, what to say. But lately, it's gotten worse. He gets angry over nothing. And then, when I try to stand up for myself, he makes me feel like I'm crazy. He twists everything. If I cry, if I get upset, he turns it on me. He says I'm overreacting, that I'm ruining everything. She paused, taking a shaky breath. And the worst part is, I started to believe him. Dr. Williams nodded again, her voice soft but firm. It sounds like he's using manipulation to control your emotions. What you're describing is emotional abuse, Sarah. And it's incredibly common in relationships where one partner wants to maintain power over the other. The words felt like a slap, but they were also a lifeline. Emotional abuse. She had heard the term before, but it always felt distant. Something that happened to other people, not to her. I never thought of it like that, Sarah murmured. I kept telling myself I was being dramatic, that I just needed to try harder, be more understanding. But now I'm starting to see how much I've lost myself. It's not your fault, Sarah, Dr. Williams said gently. Abusers often isolate their partners, making them feel like they can't trust anyone else. But you're here now, and that's a huge step. You're not alone in this. Sarah swallowed hard, her chest tightening. I feel trapped, like I can't get out. Every time I try to leave or even think about it, I feel guilty, like I'm betraying him. He makes me feel like I'm the one who's broken. That's exactly how emotional abuse works, Dr. Williams replied. The goal is to make you feel like you're at fault, like you're not worthy of support or love from anyone but him. But the truth is, you deserve so much more. You deserve a life where you feel safe, respected, and valued for who you truly are. The tears came then, hot and urgent, spilling down Sarah's face. She didn't try to stop them. For the first time in what felt like forever, she let herself feel everything: pain, fear, confusion, and maybe just a flicker of hope. I don't know if I can leave, she whispered, voice trembling. I don't know where to go. You don't have to figure it all out today, Dr. Williams reassured her. But we'll take it step by step, and I'll be here with you every step of the way. For the first time in a long time, Sarah felt like she wasn't alone in the battle. The escape, where Sarah takes the courageous step to finally break free from the toxic marriage. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Sarah knew she couldn't stay another day. She had been planning it for weeks now, gathering the courage, reaching out to friends, finding a safe place to stay. But now, standing in the kitchen of the house she once called home, it all felt so real. The house, with its polished countertops and picture-perfect decor, had once been a symbol of the life she thought she wanted. Now, it felt like a prison. Daniel's car was in the driveway, his office door shut. He would be busy for a few more hours, immersed in work. He always worked late on Tuesdays. It was the perfect time. Her heart hammered in her chest as she moved quickly, as quietly as possible, packing a small bag with just the essentials. Clothes, her wallet, her phone. Everything else could be replaced. She couldn't carry the weight of her past any longer. The hardest part had been admitting to herself that she deserved better, that she had the right to escape. She had spent too many years making excuses, convincing herself that things would improve. But they never did. The cycle of manipulation, the gaslighting, the subtle cruelty, it had worn her down until she no longer recognized the woman staring back at her in the mirror. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from Mia. Are you sure you're ready? Don't go back. You're stronger than you think. A surge of warmth ran through Sarah as she read the words. Mia had been her rock, her lifeline, reminding her time and time again that she didn't have to live this way. Mia had offered her a place to stay, a safe escape from Daniel's world. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Sarah took a deep breath, her hand shaking as she reached for her coat. The weight of the decision settled in her chest, but for the first time, it felt like freedom. She moved to the front door, feeling the cool air of the outside world rush toward her as she stepped onto the porch. Her car was parked in the driveway, but she knew Daniel had installed a GPS tracker on it months ago. She couldn't drive it without him knowing. She glanced down at her phone, seeing Mia's text again. There was no turning back. She didn't have much time. The plan had always been to leave quietly, but now, in this moment, it felt like the only choice. She opened the front gate and walked briskly to the neighbor's car, the one Mia had left in the driveway for her. Her heart pounded as she climbed in, hands gripping the steering wheel. She felt the weight of the life she was leaving behind. But in that moment, there was also a sense of lightness, like she was finally breathing again after years of suffocation. Just as she put the car in reverse, she heard the sound of footsteps on the porch behind her. Panic surged. She had to go. She couldn't wait. She pressed the gas pedal, leaving the driveway without a second glance. The house, the life, the man she thought she loved, it all faded into the rearview mirror, and with each mile, she felt her chest lighten. She had broken free. She was free. New beginnings. Sarah rebuilding her life, embracing her independence, and inspiring others with her strength. It had been 6 months since Sarah left Daniel, and the change was nothing short of transformative. The small apartment Mia had offered her was now a cozy home, filled with books, plants, and art that made Sarah smile every time she walked through the door. The walls, once bare and silent, now echoed with the laughter of friends, the quiet hum of a life reclaimed. She had furnished it with pieces that felt like her, soft, inviting colors, personal touches that reflected the woman she was rediscovering. She stood in front of the mirror that morning, adjusting a blouse she had bought on her own. No one had told her what to wear. No one had criticized her choices. For the first time in years, she saw herself clearly, strong, confident, and free. The woman in the mirror didn't just look different, she felt different. Sarah had returned to work, throwing herself into her business again, the one she had set aside for years under Daniel's influence. She found new clients, reignited her passion, and even started her own small online boutique selling custom-made products. Every email, every phone call, every new sale felt like a victory, a tiny rebellion against the life she had almost been too afraid to leave behind. It was a late afternoon when she sat down in the coffee shop, laptop open, sipping her iced latte, when she noticed a text from Mia. "I saw your latest post. You're inspiring so many people." Sarah smiled at the message. Over the past few months, she had slowly begun to share her journey with others, writing blog posts, sharing her story on social media, and talking openly about her experiences. She wanted women to know they were not alone. She wanted them to see that there was life after fear, that leaving wasn't giving up, it was giving back to yourself. A woman across the coffee shop looked up from her phone, and Sarah could see her eyes glistening with tears. She hesitated, then stood and walked over. "Excuse me," Sarah said gently, her voice calm but confident. "I know this is random, but I wanted to tell you something. If you're going through something hard, you're not alone. You can get through it, I promise. You're stronger than you think." The woman blinked, clearly startled, and then smiled gratefully, her eyes softening. "Thank you," she whispered. "I needed to hear that." Sarah returned to her seat, a sense of peace washing over her. She didn't need to wear a perfect mask anymore. She had stopped pretending to be someone she wasn't, and in doing so, she had discovered who she really was. That evening, Sarah looked out her window at the setting sun, its colors spreading across the sky like a canvas she could paint her future on. There were still days when the pain of the past tried to creep in, when the shadows of old memories would threaten to take hold. But now, she faced them with courage, not because they didn't hurt, but because she knew she had the power to face them head on. Her life was hers again. And as she stepped into the future, she knew she would keep growing, keep fighting, and keep inspiring. The woman who once lived in the shadow of someone else's control had emerged stronger than ever, ready to embrace the life she was meant to live. Her story wasn't just about survival, it was about rebirth. and this was just the beginning.